What's going on, everybody? Hope you guys have been doing well. Long time no talk. We had mentioned that we're going to want to start doing more of these recaps, kind of get back into it. And yeah, I figured we'll start today. Right, being from South Carolina, we had that massive hurricane come through, so been without power the past few days, but we're back up and running, so should be more consistent now. Just 2 trades for us this afternoon. We missed that whole morning run, which is unfortunate, but you'll see why we don't really ever get FOMO, because we were able to catch a really nice trade here in the afternoon, and we'll cover that. Just real quick though on this higher time frame. Right, obviously bearish delivery, targeting sell side here, and returning just into this little inefficiency. So we kind of expected to run lower, just because we've been running bullish for really a few weeks now. Just continuing with the bullish activity. We had just cleared an intermediate swing point here as well as here. So after clearing that, breaking structure, and then especially holding this bearish fair value gap, we would expect at least a little retracement just to pick up some minor sell side liquidity, and that's what we got here. As we continue to work our way down now, we'll kind of go straight into the 15. This here, as we mentioned, is our 4-hour fair value gap. We also had, just real quick, I want to point out, we also had now a larger 1 hour here. And that's what we ended up tapping before we displaced lower. So we'll keep the 1 hour, a little bit easier to see. Right, we traded up into it once, twice, 3 times. 4th time we touch it, and then that 5th time, perfect delivery into the low, just before the huge displacement. So that right there is the market tipping its hand that we want to remain bearish, and that sell side was okay to look to target. We'll quickly hop onto the 5-minute. Right, just wanted to show that we had created this swing point inside the hourly, and then once again reinforcing the idea that we're going to want to remain bearish. Price hits that level perfectly, huge displacement lower, back below previous day high as well. From here, you'll notice that we hold that 5-minute fair value gap. Once again, indicating that we want to remain heavy, especially because, we can't return up into any of these inefficiencies. So we're holding at the lowest inefficiency, breaking structure again, one more tap, breaking structure just before we head into 930. And then that inefficiency is what gets used to propel us lower all the way down into 15-minute equal lows, as well as a new week opening gap. We head on to the 1 minute. So we were following this morning. It gave a good opportunity off that 5-minute, also off of the 1 minute that's within that. Ideally, I was looking for a Judas swing first. Wanted to see us break down, and then I was going to try to enter on whatever got left behind. I didn't want to jump in ahead of 9:30, especially with news at 10. But as you see, that was really the only opportunity it gave us. So after clearing this short-term high, we clear that short-term high, we displace lower. Notice how we leave that sensitive volume imbalance. Where this candlestick never attempts to get back into this candlestick's close. Pair that with the consequent encroachment. Beautiful area. So it did give you a few entry opportunities if you wanted to get in early, right here and then here. As we mentioned, we missed that, and we still don't have FOMO. Even though we saw this huge down move, we understood that more than likely we're going to get some type of either retracement later on in the afternoon to trade up into new week opening gap, or we're going to get a continuation to continue to target basically lower objectives. So either way, we understood that there would be a trade for us later on. And even though we missed this nice move here, there's no need to feel any type of way about it. It did give a few opportunities before it actually cleared out this sell side. So you'll notice how none of these get returned into, but as we trade below that previous day low, that's a key area, Previous day low and previous day high, key areas. We displace through that with a fair value gap. We trade into it once, twice, we then break away again. So that would have been kind of one area to look for. As we move away from the new week opening gap and we understand this is what our objective is, we can use the most recently formed inefficiency here. That would have been another opportunity. We trade into that, we then break away heavily, falling just short of these relative equal lows. So now we've created even more sell side, reinforcing the fact that we can look for that low to be targeted. And inside of here, if you waited for a retracement, looking for confirmation, we can use inversion. So if we're still expecting price to reach into these lows, we simply wait for, right, proof that price wants to start breaking down again. So we trade back up into this range, simply returning into that original fair value gap, right? So we're reclaiming this bearish fair value gap. And as we mentioned, we want to see what happens to the last discount that gets formed as we trade up into that. So this is the bullish fair value gap. Once we close below that here, this becomes our inversion. That would be our second area to look to enter. We wick up into that quickly. We then break away, never getting back up into it before ultimately clearing that short-term low and then that higher time frame equal lows as well. So once we ran into that, that was kind of my objective for the day, or for the morning anyways. So we simply walked away and we just let price play out. Right, we came back at 130, and that is where our two entries came out. So originally, we actually tried getting short into this. Right, so we have two equal lows here. And as we mentioned, if I show you, we do have a new week opening gap. So I kind of thought we may want to continue this bearishness, especially because as we kind of look into that, right, we traded back into this inefficiency, but we simply cleared a short-term high, we then displaced lower, and we were holding the premiums heading into 130. So over lunch, we're starting to now target sell side here, right? Some of these lows, some of these inefficiencies. And I just kind of wanted to see if price didn't have the willingness to try to target this sell side. So we were aiming for the sell side, and we were actually using this fair value gap here. Right, fair value gap paired with that volume imbalance. So the entry came on the high of it because we had that volume imbalance. Stop loss was above that swing point, and we were simply targeting this low here. Oops. Right, quick little kind of recap as to why we were looking for lower prices anyways. As we mentioned, we're holding these premiums, we move away. Even here, right, we clear a short-term high quickly, and then we displace away, we hold that premium. Just a small one, but still hold it before breaking away again, breaking structure, leaving behind these new premiums here. So at this point, as we mentioned, we were expecting price to run out these lows, and we wanted to see that hold from here. Unfortunately, however, in that very same candle that we entered on, we get stopped out immediately. However, because we understand how order flow works, right, we're not scared. We understand that we can still enter, and we have no hesitation flipping our bias. So we get stopped out here quickly. But I noticed that, all right, well, we displaced through really all of these premiums, and we had cleared out these lows. So how I originally wanted to see these lows get cleared, because we've already cleared so much sell side and displaced away, that right there is kind of, as we talk about, the elephant in the room. It's hard to not notice that huge displacement after clearing this area of consolidation. And to kind of even reinforce the fact, if we go to a 2-minute real quick, should pop up, boom, right? We're inside of a new week opening gap already, and we're hitting that consequent encroachment. So I wanted to see this give way so we can attack this low, but once price showed a willingness to hold from there and displace away, we're not trying to fight that, right? We understand that there is now a lot of buy side left behind. Price has been going lower all morning. People are going to want to continue to try to stack into that. So at this point, we just go with a counter trend trade into this new week opening gap. Right, with the logic that we're going to move from new week opening gap here into at least this new week opening gap to clear out some of this buy side and return into this original inefficiency. We'll go back down to the 1 minute quickly. So as you mentioned, right, we clear the sell side, we displace higher through the fair value gap we entered on, through the volume imbalance, and really closing above this swing point here. Once we saw that, we simply were waiting to see if we could actually form now a bullish fair value gap along with that inversion. So obviously the bearish fair value gap here becomes an inversion, and we left behind a bullish fair value gap in its place. At this point, I expected price to run higher, but I really wanted to wait for confirmation to enter. So we trade into that volume imbalance once, right? We actually clear that low hitting. This is the, I'm going to move the inversion. We hit the 1 minute bullish fair value gap's consequent encroachment, and then we actually close above it here with this candle. Once I saw that, I was okay to enter on the high of that fair value gap. Because as we often talk about, if we're going to remain bullish, once we hit consequent encroachment and close above, we shouldn't really even venture back towards consequent encroachment, and we should definitely not come back into this fair value gaps low. So the entry comes right on the high, stop right at the low of that, and then our exit became that new week opening gap, with the understanding that we're moving from new week opening gap here into this new week opening gap. So we held that for the full pull, as we say, almost 5R. So as you mentioned, a beautiful trade here coming after a loss as well. And that's why it's important to really trust in your analysis, right? If I would have been nervous or kind of been thrown off by taking that quick loss here with the shorts, we would have missed this beautiful move that paid for the loss and more, right? So as we tap into that, can we throw up? Oh yeah, so it's after 5, so the actual executions aren't going to show on the account, unfortunately. But you could trust that, right? No need to lie to you. We enter on that swing low. We then displace through this high, giving actually another opportunity to enter. We didn't take that stacking opportunity. Instead, as we mentioned, we were just going to hold for the full run. Once we retrace into that inefficiency, all up close candles right into that new week opening gap. So this right here is a textbook low resistance liquidity run, right? Where we trade up into consequent encroachment, displace, right? Notice both times we don't go any lower than consequent encroachment. And then from here, we cut right through all of this that was left behind over lunch. So targeting the buy side. And then as we mentioned, returning into that inefficiency that was created as we leave the new week opening gap for the first time. So a beautiful trade. We get out right on that swing high. We go swing low to swing high, just as we like it. And then from there, we just really kind of consolidate into the close, right? Price does retrace a little bit. Where does it retrace into? Well, if we take high to low from that last run heading into the close, right, the lowest low, consequent encroachment. Notice how we have a fair value gap aligned with that. Look at where price closes, right on that level. So beautiful precision overall. And yeah, just a good afternoon, right? Just a great example of why you should never really have FOMO. Right? I'm sure a lot of people miss this move and were just trying to pile into it, right? Maybe blowing their accounts, maybe just making not smart decisions. Once price cleared this low and it started to kind of chop back and forth, we understood that there's always going to be an opportunity. And this basically 5R trade here could make just as much as someone who went short in here with larger stops, right? So for me, I'm never really worried about what price is running to or how large the range is, because I understand that if we are on sides and with the precision that we have, it's pretty easy to catch moves that can give us good risk to reward. And that's what we get here. So yeah, overall, good day, right? One loss. We'll throw that in there just so you guys can see it again. Quick loss here, immediately flipped into the long here, that then made up for the loss and plenty more. I hope you guys found that one helpful. Right, once again, just a good lesson on why you should never really have FOMO. As long as you trust in your setups and your analysis, these things will present themselves over and over. So no need to feel any type of way about missing a move. Overall, let's see where we're at now. I still wouldn't mind trying to come into this low. All right, so just maybe continuing to run bearish. We have a 15-minute fair value gap here. If we can close below that, which we have, I would actually expect that to act as resistance, especially because we have a new day opening gap now. And I'd like to see that sell side here get hit. If for some reason, let's say that we accelerate back above new opening gap, then I would actually look for at least consequent encroachment of this fair value gap here. So as we mentioned, always like to have if-then statements. We can trade both sides of the market. Ideally, we come here, but right, price doesn't always do what we expect. So it's good to have a backup plan in case we want to get back above and start targeting this inefficiency. But yeah, we'll leave you guys with that. As we mentioned, been a minute, but hopefully we can get back into the swing of things here. Hopefully you guys found that one helpful. Until we talk again, have a good night and take care, everybody.